This episode has been brought to you by Manscaped. The new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page on confidence this year. Go to manscaped.com, use the code GOLTS20 for 20% off plus free shipping today. This week on the Heart of the Gulch YouTube show, we sit down with on-air personality for WSM Radio, Eryn Cooper. In today's Walk the Line episode, Eryn gives us a tour at WSM Radio's newest studio, and we go behind the scenes at the Grand Ole Opry. Let's check out the episode. We are in the Heart of the Gulch. I'm your host, Tony Mendoza, and today I'm very excited to talk to my guest today because not only is she used to being on the other side of the microphone, she's really done it all. Everything from broadcast journalism to sports journalism, and now being part of the radio station there at the Opry, the Grand Ole Opry. We got the one and only Eryn Cooper in the building.
Hey!
Eryn, how are you doing today?
Oh my gosh, I am fantastic. You are such a pro. I've already had so much fun with you in the couple minutes we've been hanging out, and this is really cool because I usually find people and ask them to be on our show. So thank you for finding me and asking me to come on today.
Well, it's very easy to find you. I think one thing that since you moved here in 2021, you have been completely out there making sure everyone sees your content. You are not only done a bunch of different things in your short amount of time here in Nashville, but you do a really good job of promoting yourself and also just showing people the lighter side of social media.
Thank you so much. Yes, when I set out on this journey and moved to Nashville 2.5 years ago, I told myself that I just wanted to put content out that I enjoyed making, even if nobody was watching, because I love to do it anyway. And I know that making content, no matter what you do in any industry, isn't always the most fun or the easiest thing to do. But I have gravitated towards things I love and just getting out there any chance I can and having fun, and hopefully other people have fun watching me have fun.
Well, absolutely. And you do a great job at really networking and talking to other people. And I think that's what's been amazing about your journey, because since growing up in Washington, D.C. area, first of all, you know, what would you tell everyone that hasn't been to Washington, D.C. or that area of the U.S.? How different is it from Nashville and the rest of the United States?
Oh, it's so different. I would say that my favorite part about it is you do get all 4 seasons very evenly. So you get a full-on winter, spring, fall, summer, 100-degree summers, 0-degree winters. It's very diverse, and I love that as well. You have everybody from all over the world. I grew up in a very diverse county where I went to high school and all that. The traffic is terrible. So if you think the traffic in Nashville is bad, try spending a couple days in D.C. And I will say that people in Nashville are much more friendly and dream driven and oriented. When I was growing up and I would say, oh, I want to be like Ryan Seacrest. I want to work with musicians and tell their stories. People would be like, oh, okay. But then you move here and I've been here a week and I'm new to town. Hey, can I tell your story? I love your music. Oh my gosh, yeah, what do you want to do? And everyone just piles on and is like, yeah, we're going to help you reach your dream. DC is you're going to be a politician, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, which are incredible professions. Don't get me wrong. And people much smarter than I do those things and are able to do those things. But I think for creatives, this is the place to be.
Well, that's true. And I would say that Nashville, I think it just comes down to a lot of people in this city want to help others.
Yes.
Now, as we grow into a bigger city, I'm sure that that's going to slowly dissipate. But, talking about, Washington, D.C., which you didn't give yourself enough credit for, is that you also do have Disney, which is National Geographic there. And National Geographic is one of those programs there in the Washington, D.C. area that is really out there. That really also kind of got you your start of your dream to be there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I haven't talked about this in so long. That's so cool that you bring this up. Yeah. I really found my calling for storytelling when I was in a National Geographic documentary in 2013-14 called Sleepless in America. I was part of a student advocacy group all throughout elementary, middle, high school that was a group of parents and students that were hoping to have high schools start later. In Fairfax County, we were starting at 7:20 a.m., buses coming around 6:30, kids waking up at 5:30, if not earlier, all in the middle of when your body clock is changing the most as an adolescent. And, you're also going to bed naturally later at that point in your life, just with your circadian rhythm switching. And so there was a 20-year-long debate between the school board and schools and parents, should we have high school start later for the better health of our children? And Sleepless in America featured a portion of their documentary on sleep-deprived children and adolescents. The whole documentary was different sectors of Americans that were experiencing sleep deprivation. So those struggling with PTSD, people with different medical conditions, people that like truck drivers that drive through, all hours of the day and night. I was in that documentary in 2013, 2014, and I had in my Honda Civic, I had just been driving not even a year, and I had a producer, a boom op, and a camera guy all in the back of my car filming me and interviewing me as I drove to school. They came to my math class. They filmed me doing my morning routine. My parents were in the documentary and telling my story of how rough it is.
So it was like MTV back in the day, right? So you talk about, you remember, what was it, Sweet 16?
Oh, yeah.
And Sweet 16, they would have that camera crew of MTV go to everywhere that 16-year-old was. Mm-hmm. Technically, that was it, but with National Geographic, which is actually pretty cool. That's really sick. I love that. And, the only people that really have cameras in their high schools or when they're growing up are usually athletes. Yeah. Those are the ones that are filmed when they're very young in the school, and everyone knows at that point that person is important. Now, my question is this. Now, when you were going to school and you had camera crews, or I'm sure it was for a short amount of time, but, what did that change? Did that change your outlook on things? Did people change their outlook on you when they saw all these things?
Oh, that's a great question. So in terms of my outlook on things, it inspired me. Hey, this is so cool. I want to be a part of something like this. And it also did lead, after the documentary came out, I'm not going to say it was directly correlated, but the school board did pass to have high school start later. So I had told part of my story. I'd been part of a bigger story that invoked real positive change. And so internally, it changed the way I looked at myself and the way that I looked at storytelling. I would say, there's always going to be kids in any school. And I definitely had kids growing up that made fun of me for being too passionate or too enthusiastic about things. I also call myself a professional fangirl because that is what I am. And I've always been so excited and passionate about different bands and artists. So I had already been facing some of that. And then, when you bring a camera crew to school, kids are like, what are you doing?
Have you ever had anything be so far in your young life, right? Have you had anything else that you've worked on that's been that impactful?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I think every step of my career from, going to high school, then going to Alabama and working for SEC Network, that was a huge change in terms of perspective because I had always wanted to work in entertainment and in music, and I knew I would get there. But then when you're thrown into the #1 sports program in the country and you're covering 15 sports, all the coaches, stats, opponents, you're doing 8 different jobs for the broadcast program, which was through ESPN. So you're 18 years old, you're in your first semester in college, and you're with the top dogs and learning all of these new skills. So that was transformative. And then,
well, let's keep on that real quick. So with Alabama, you grew up in, I would consider it almost the Northeastern.
Oh, definitely.
It's very close to the Northeastern. But Alabama's such a very unique school to go to pursue broadcast journalism out of all the schools in the United States. So why Alabama?
So a few reasons. I grew up visiting the campus. My mom, hi mom, is a proud Alabama grad, and she was in the $1 Million Band. So she was in the marching band there, and her best friends to this day, she met there. So I grew up going to football games before the Nick Saban era. So when we were in that lull, when we were not good, and I fell in love with the campus. It felt like home already. But what really struck me was right before I had gone, they built an entire TV studio for news for ESPN and radio stations in the side of Bryant-Denny Stadium. And state-of-the-art, top-notch things. It was brand new. And I walked in there and I thought to myself, there is no other place that I can think of that's not only going to feel like home, that's not only going to be in a place that's warm, because I really wanted to go somewhere that was warm all the time. This is it.
So speaking of that, that is actually one of the most challenging things to get a part of. So what I mean by that is, for the folks that did not go to a top school that is top in sports, Alabama being the probably number one for the past decade, you know how challenging that must really be to be in that organization of working for the Crimson Tide under, as an affiliate person who is on the sidelines. That's not an easy job to get, because there's so many backstabbing kids out there that are in the same school that want that same job that you got.
Gosh.
So talk to me about that, and then also talk to me about, being around, the school and the sports, because, and one last question. I'm sorry that I'm breaking it all up here.
No, I love it.
Were you in a sorority at all?
Okay, so I'll answer that one first. Yes, I was in Pi Beta Phi.
What's your gang sign? Show it to me.
Oh, well, we do this. We do wings,
Okay.
because our angel is sort of like our symbol. So is the arrow. But proud Pi Beta Phi sister, Alabama Beta. And to backtrack and break it down. So yes, I was immediately aware of the situation I was in when I applied to become a part of Crimson Tide Productions, which is the Alabama-based sector that works with SEC and ESPN. I honestly when I tried out and submitted my application, did my interview, my former boss, Justin Brandt, who I adore, who I am still friends with to this day, he was very intimidating in the interview. And I walked away. I was like, no, they're not going to pick me. And they picked me as one of the new students as a freshman, and I was blown away. And I instantly was like, you have no choice but to succeed. You have to, throw yourself in, do every job that they want you to do. It doesn't matter what it is. I started as a utility grip and then worked my way up to be a sideline reporter by the end. And knowing that there were, so many people anywhere that would want to do that, there is a sense of guilt of why me? Why did I get to do this? But on the other hand, I was always willing to do whatever it took and do anything that was assigned to me, and I was never afraid to try.
Let's get out of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and let's talk a little bit more about, your first couple roles being a broadcast journalist, and having to do it all and learning how to be scrappy and everything like that.
Yeah. So out of school, my first job was a news reporter and anchor in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I am so thankful for this phase of my life, because it was the hardest thing, and still the hardest thing to date, that I've been through, which I guess just speaks to how wonderful and blessed of a life I've had to this point. To put it in perspective, and we can dive into whatever parts that you want, 6 months into my first job, the pandemic hit. After that, we had the protests, the George Floyd and subsequent protests in the South, the 2020 election, and we had 2 tornadoes devastate this part of the state. We had, of course, first the Nashville tornado, which we're coming up on the third or fourth anniversary. Fourth anniversary. And then just a few weeks later, one that devastated Chattanooga that I lived through, and it came to my front door. My family was visiting. It was this whole thing. And
what was that like, real quick?
The tornado?
What's it like to be in a situation where it is literally coming down your path, a real life tornado?
Well, I'm very thankful that my apartment complex was mostly left unscathed. Some of the shackles and what's the word I'm looking for? Not shackles, shingles. That's what I'm looking for.
Very close. Very close.
Shingles had blown off of the roof, and sod everywhere, splattered on people's doors. But what I will never forget is my parents and I sitting in my closet, and you could hear my wooden blinds get sucked to the window from the outside because of the pressure change, and hearing that was insane.
Does it sound like a train?
Does it sound like a train? I think I was It's hard. I actually don't really I just remember it was loud. But but maybe a train would be a good way to describe it.
I can't imagine, because, you know, a lot of people, because I'm trying to paint the picture out there for people that do not live in Tornado Alley, because we have people watching this from all over the United States.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's something different when you live in a town, like when you were living in Chattanooga and I was living here in Nashville during that tornado, that it's eye-opening when a real life situation is happening to your town. It's just something you've never experienced before.
That's exactly right. And I think in the time that I was a news reporter from summer of 2019 to summer of 2021, it was back-to-back devastation, whether it was the pandemic and in every way that was devastating to everyone, or the tornadoes, or the protests, or, you know, the election. There was, you know, in that phase in general, there was just so much anger, and people weren't understanding so many different things, and nobody could catch a break, right? And
you are.
And there I am, and my job is to not avoid any of it. And I have to be in the thick of it at all times. If you think back to the pandemic, there was really only 3 groups of people that were guaranteed to keep a job at the end of the day. You had your essential workers that were, you know, your medical staff, your first responders. You have your people at the grocery stores and people that were keeping food stocked. And then you had journalists. And I was a journalist, and so incredibly grateful that I wasn't, you know, someone that was left without a job. I think about that all the time. Also, my job that I kept was almost to seek out the worst possible thing that was happening to tell that person's story, because it's important to put things in perspective, but also that toll that it takes on you is just unfathomable.
Well, also as us growing up, right? And at the time you just left college, right? So you gotta take in mind that, you know, you didn't have 10 years of experience in being in broadcast journalism. You were kind of thrown into, you know, having your bosses tell you to do all these different things, from create clips perfectly. And if you didn't create that clip perfectly, you had to redo it, but also doing like 6 other things. I couldn't imagine what it must have been like to also then hear stories of people that were, you know, affected by natural disasters, by racist protests, because that's what it was, and a lot of other crazy things that happen in your first first year of broadcast journalism. That is a story that's unlike a lot of people's stories when they first get into the job.
It made me capable to do what I do now. It put everything in perspective, where if you are meeting somebody on the worst day of their life and literally 5 of their children have died that morning, and the first person that they talk to about it is you, someone they've never met before, interviewing someone that you share a passion with, that is there for a happy thing, such as an album release or their Grand Ole Opry debut that we do on my morning show at WSM. It makes doing that not only something you can appreciate so much deeper, but once you can talk to someone on the worst day of their life and ask questions in a sensitive and mindful, palatable way, you can ask anybody anything for the rest of time.
Yeah, I love that, because you're getting rid of that initial fear. At this point, you don't fear talking to me. You know, it's a situation that is like, that is such an amazing story. But before we get into that, because I'm excited to learn how you transitioned into Nashville, we got to thank our sponsors. So real quick, we're going to take a quick break. Manscaped, shout out to Manscaped, and I will be back with Eryn in 1 second after this.
This episode has been brought to you by Manscaped. The new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page on confidence this year. Go to manscaped.com, use the code GOLTS20 for 20% off plus free shipping today.
You know, you going through Washington, D.C. to Alabama to Chattanooga, all these skills kind of pushed you to breaking out of your shell, if you ever had a shell, and really getting to meet these influential musicians that you had a chance to build your own LLC.
Exactly. So yes, I decided while I was working in news that everything I had experienced and all the tools that I had learned, I had reached a point with the environment I was in that anything else I experienced, I wasn't going to grow. It was going to hurt me. I had already started to be so burnt out. And I was like, if the pandemic has proven anything to anybody, is that there are no rules and nobody knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I adopted that as a slogan. I bought myself out of my contract in June of 2021, moved here and gave myself 6 months. And I'm very fortunate that I have a family who said, if we get into an emergency and you need help, we can and we will help you. So I'm so grateful to my family for having, my back if things were to not work out. And I had to mentally prepare. I might have to get a real job if I can't become a professional fan like I've always wanted to be. I grew up wanting to be like Ryan Seacrest. I grew up wanting to tell the stories of the best storytellers. And in my opinion, those are artists and musicians. And I moved here. And I was instantly so inspired by everybody here. Colors were brighter. I was writing poetry, which I am not an artist or a musician. I've written poetry off and on, but I was just overflowing with inspiration. And I would take videos of myself having fun at different concerts and tag relevant people in it and go to a bunch of writers' rounds. I have to shout out Nashville Tour Stop, my favorite writers' round in town. My best friend Eryn created that and runs it to this day. And he brought me on to interview his artists that would play his round. And I just wanted to tell any and everybody's stories that I could. And, I was making $20 here, $100 here, doing whatever I could, living in a house with 3 other girls, to make this happen. And then if I moved here in July, by November, a radio station had reached out to me and changed my life.
Talking about the writers' rounds and talking about what makes Nashville, which isn't the Lainey Wilsons and the Jelly Rolls. It was Lainey Wilson and Jelly Roll when they were at writers' rounds.
Yes.
That's what makes Nashville is before they became big names. Mm-hmm. So what was it like to really get to talk to, like the people that are coming up in this industry at a very early stage?
For these writers' rounds, it's places like that where Maren Morris got her start. And to have friends that I met when I first moved here that I got to interview, and knowing how talented they are and knowing that they're going to blow up. And for me to be able to say, when they were playing rooms to 20, 40, 80, 100 people, and now they are Lainey Wilson, they are Jelly Roll. And speaking of which, you mentioned the 6 months of where you're kind of getting your feet wet and getting adjusted. They call this place a 10-year town. And so people will play these rounds for years and years and years and then get their big break. And so that's, hitting that sweet spot of seeing somebody in those formative years is just unbelievable.
You're right. And it is a 10-year town for musicians. Mm-hmm. I've spoken to a bunch of people in that seat right there, right? People that have been doing it for decades.
Sure.
That have been doing broadcast journalism. And this is a question I'm going to ask you. So, with social media, with TikTok, with all these avenues to get your personality across, but you did do the grunt work. You did do the work of having to be a broadcast journalist during the most difficult time in the United States history,
sure,
which is not easy to do. But, given these opportunities that you're able to make out of, just being yourself, there are a lot of people that do not have that opportunity to get a champion like Joe Breezy. Shout out to Joe Breezy, by the way.
Yay. I'm so glad we're getting to this part. Yes. I'm so grateful for, I guess, my formal broadcasting chops and experience. And it did get, I always call it just adding tools to the tool belt. Okay, so I want to be an entertainment reporter. I went to school and worked as a sports reporter. Cool. I'll learn sports. I will learn all 15 teams and the players and the coaches and the stats and the rules. I'll do it. Okay, well, getting a sports job out of school there's usually 1 or 2 sports reporters for every local news station, of which, there's anywhere from 5 to 15 news reporters. All right, so I'm going to become a news reporter. I have a better chance. All right, pivoting, going to become a news reporter. Okay, leaving news, I want to work in entertainment. Mm-hmm. All right, radio comes knocking. All right, what tools do I already have in my tool belt that are transferable? It's all about transferable skills. And I think when people have a certain set of skills, especially skills that they've worked really hard to acquire, that you can feel trapped. Oh, well, this exact opportunity that I want or that I've been trying to get isn't available to me. but what can you use to get to that opportunity? How many steps can you take to get there using what you already have? And so that's what brought me to radio, working at Hot 106.7 when I had been to a One Direction DJ night, took a video of me having fun at this DJ night. At that point, I already have artist interviews up on my page. I had started an Instagram show where I was interviewing people every Wednesday for an hour and having them play songs on Instagram Live. Mm-hmm. Joe Breezy found me and messaged me and said, do you want to try radio? Okay. And I said, absolutely. I'm not afraid to try. So,
well, you know, so I have to ask this question because going through all those ranks and everything like that, how competitive is Eryn?
How competitive? Okay. I am extremely self-competitive. I am my own worst competition and critic. I am aware of, yes, you have to compete with other people, mm-hmm. but because no one will ever be harder on me than me, mm-hmm. I don't need to worry about what other people are doing, because if I see where I need to improve, or if I see something that I want, no one is going to want it more or be harder on themselves about getting it than me. So what other people are doing, whatever.
Well, that adds also to another question. So jealousy, does jealousy ever play a role in what you do today? So for example, I'm going to bring this up as just an idea, right? So when you're on the red carpet, you're not the only person that's on the red carpet.
Sure.
You're not always the person that's going to speak to the biggest person that's walking the floor. You may get skipped on, but then there's somebody that person skipped on you. Let's just use Ryan Seacrest, for example. Ryan Seacrest skipped you, but he went 2 reporters down to a person that knew or something.
Sure.
Your mind goes and starts rolling. Why did Ryan Seacrest pass me up when I wanted to interview them? So do you ever look at it when you're in those situations where you're with other reporters and sometimes you don't get the big interview, you don't get the big opportunity?
Sure. Well, first of all, Ryan Seacrest, if you're listening to Heart of the Gulch right now, please don't skip over me if I ever get to talk to you. Mm-hmm. I may need to wear a diaper if I ever have that opportunity, but okay, well, maybe now he will want to skip me. Anyway.
I like that.
So, no, you're exactly right about, is there jealousy? Oh, somebody wanted a bigger, a better opportunity.
A better interview sometimes. Bigger interview names.
Exactly. And at the end, to be honest, I get it. We were all at a point where we were just starting out. And sometimes when you get to a point where you're exhausted, I know if we're going to use the Ryan Seacrest example, and just like other people, Ryan Seacrest has worked 24-hour days before. And if he's like, okay, if it's between this person with 7,600 followers on Instagram and somebody with, an outlet and they have 500,000 followers, yeah, if he has that knowledge, I understand that. But what I like to think of is I'm not competitive with those people. Also, I don't think Ryan would ever do that. But there's room for everybody, in my opinion. I am not going to tear anybody else down or be intimidated by somebody else doing what I'm doing, because I welcome it. It's not easy to do this in many different ways. And if you are putting in the work and you're here and you're prepared and you got to be able to be here, there's room for all of it.
Talk to me about the Grand Ole Opry and what does an opportunity like that magnitude mean to you?
So working at the Grand Ole Opry, in my opinion, there is no larger stage I could be so blessed to work on than the oldest stage in country music, or music in general. The radio show that I'm on, WSM, is the longest running radio program in the world. And it is where every country artist dreams of performing or getting to go to. And the Opry is just so historic, and it's a staple of where we live. And it is a pinch me opportunity. I get up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And that is not easy and not always fun. But within 30 seconds of my alarm going off and I'm like laying in bed questioning everything of why I'm getting up this early, I get to work at the Grand Ole Opry. Mm-hmm. I get to work on WSM. That is so freaking cool. And there, like I said, just to have that platform and to see people when I worked in news, again, sometimes I would see people on one of the happiest days of their lives, but unfortunately a lot of the times in my experience, it was one of the worst days. And when people come on our show, either in general or if it's prior or after a Grand Ole Opry debut for them, I get to see them on one of the best days of their life. And that is so special to be a part of that.
How does that work? So, for example, let's use one of our good friends on the show, Walker Montgomery. Shout out to Walker Montgomery. So he just had his first ever Opry debut. Mm-hmm. Now, would Walker first be interviewed by WSM, or would he first complete his agenda at the Grand Ole Opry and then you would meet him? Or talk to me about how you would meet a person doing their first time ever doing their Grand Ole Opry debut.
So the cool thing about our show is it's not super formal in that you have to come see us before you debut or whatever. But the cool thing is when we do get to have an artist, it's really just based on their schedule. So if they're able to come in the morning of, that's really cool because they have the jitters. This morning, for instance, we had Paul McDonald. Shout out to Paul McDonald. He is someone I've been following probably since I was 13 years old. Mm-hmm. And he's an incredible musician. He's debuting on the Opry tonight, but he's been in town for, over 10 years, 10, 15 years. And it's just, he's everywhere. And to have him be able to come in before he hits the stage is awesome. Sometimes we have people come in the day after so they can recount the whole experience and talk about everything that happened and what it felt like. Sometimes we have people a couple days before and we can kind of help mentally prepare them for what that's going to be like. So it really just depends on their schedule. And, we always love getting to celebrate people when they're about to make that huge milestone.
Well, okay. So talk to me about the two different types. So you got the Grand Ole Opry and then you have the RaeLynn. Right. Yeah. You have these two big pillars in Nashville for musicians.
Yes.
So what would you say are the differences and what would you say are their very uniqueness to both of those? So
before the Grand Ole Opry House that was built out off Briley Parkway at Opry Mills, the RaeLynn was the home of the Grand Ole Opry. And, the mother church, and that obviously it's downtown. It's quite a ways away. But the RaeLynn now, sometimes the Opry will go and play the RaeLynn and it's Opry at the RaeLynn, shocker name. But it's still so historic for that reason. And because it's called the Mother Church and it literally was a church, it's still so momentous for any artist to play it. But the cool thing about the RaeLynn is that you'll see kind of every genre will go and play concerts there. And it's a concert venue that has that history and the Opry precedent within it. And then you go to the Opry House and it's turning 50 years old this fall. So that already has a lot of history in it. And it's definitely one of the things that we say on our show and that the Opry is known for is where country plays. And when you walk backstage at the Opry and you see the most beautiful, organized circus. You have people playing the banjo, walking down the hallway with their friend who's in the dressing room across the way that they haven't seen in 10 years. You have people just breaking out into song, people eating popcorn, people having reunions, people just having jam sessions in these gorgeous dressing rooms that, Dolly Parton has her own dressing room. So many Opry stars have their own space, and it's just insane.
Who have you stumbled across while you were just walking, either at work or just if you were backstage while someone was debuting? Who have you stumbled across just in passing, didn't even realize you had passed them until they passed you up and you're like, oh snap, that was so-and-so?
The night that John Party was inducted into the Grand Ole Opry, and he, by the time this airs, Scotty McCreery will be the newest member. John Party was getting inducted one of the nights I was running around backstage, and he had so many people there to support him. And I had actually just started at that point. And so to be there so early on such a historic night, again, hopefully one of the best days of John Party's life, to be around that was really cool. So I've stumbled upon him. But I think, because I spend more of my time in WSM, we've just had all sorts of wildly cool people. We had Artemis Pyle, who was the drummer for Lynyrd Skynyrd, and he recounted the plane crash that he lived through, where sadly the other members of his band passed in. Mm-hmm. And to have this music legend just sit there talking about this and me just front row seat, my gosh, mm-hmm. I pinch myself every day.
You know, and you were talking about this in passing with Jon Pardi, right? So Jon Pardi being one of the newest, you know, well-known country music stars here in the world, mm-hmm. right? When you say that his entourage, it wasn't actually his entourage, because when people go and they're inducted into the Opry Hall of Fame, or if it's their first time ever playing the Grand Ole Opry, it's usually very well recognizable stars that come to go visit them.
Yeah.
And it's one of the coolest little fraternities and sororities ever in the city. Great way to put it.
Exactly.
Would you consider the Grand Ole Opry a fraternity / sorority?
Yes. And actually the Opry, I would say more, it's a family, which in my experience, you know, I would have called my sorority that, but overall it is a family. There's actually a room in the Opry house called the family room, and it's technically, I guess you could call like a green room, but it's where everybody and anybody can sit. They have an old mural in there that survived the Nashville flood, and you can go in there and you can see on the mural where the water line went up to. And they have popcorn in there and lemonade and iced tea, and it's the family room. And when you join the Opry, you are a part of the Opry family. So I think in terms of how much fun you can have, oh yeah, sorority, fraternity, but it is a family at the end of the day, and it's so cool to see how much everybody loves each other when they're there.
Now, you know, before we go on to this crowd noise sections where we have friends of you submit their questions that you're going to hear in your ear, I'm curious about this. You know, where does Eryn's story lead to? Now, with the Opry, there's all kinds of opportunities. Nashville, there's all kinds of opportunities, but I can tell that you're a person that wouldn't mind exploring larger cities and getting lost in the sauce in LA or New York. So talk to me, is that a realistic goal or what you want to do?
Sure. You know, the cool thing about what I do is you can do multiple things at once. So if there ever is an opportunity where, you know, I could go work on a project somewhere else, I would enjoy the flexibility to, you know, go do something for a couple days and come back. Or, you know, if for an award show that the Opry would be covering, yeah, send me to Vegas, send me to LA, New York. I'm there. I'll totally cover it. I see myself wanting to stay in Nashville for as long as I can. I feel like I've built a very happy life here. I love my roommate that I live with. She's my best friend from college. She's actually part of the reason I moved here. She forced me to move here, as she says, and I'm so glad that she did. To do what I want to do and interview artists and interview creatives, where else would I want to go other than here? So if I were to go to a bigger city, you know, in LA or New York, it would take a pretty crazy opportunity. I always shoot for the stars, and anything's possible, but I'm also really just happy with where I'm at in life in general, and proud of what's been accomplished so far. So I've been go for so long. I'm in no rush to just, you know, I would love to just kind of hang out. You know?
Well, you know, speaking of hanging out, we have some folks that want to hang out with you with their voices and crowd noise. So in a second, we're going to play crowd noise, and we'll be right back with Eryn.
What is a moment or an interview that you had that was really just like a pinch me, I'm dreaming moment?
I know who that is, but an interview moment or a pinch me, I'm dreaming moment. Okay. I'll give you two. The first one, in chronological order, AJ McLean of the Backstreet Boys. I grew up listening to the Backstreet Boys, as all of us 90s and early 2000s babies did. And AJ was coming in to promote his solo single that was out at the time. And this was back when I was working at Hot 106.7, a pop station in Nashville. And he came in, and one of my questions that I asked him, there had been the original version of I Want It That Way, that is out and about on the internet. It's not the version we all know and love. The lyrics are different. And people had been losing their minds on the internet about it. And so I wanted to know the backstory on that version. So I played part of the clip for AJ. I didn't tell him what it was going to be. I played it for him, and before it was even done, AJ starts singing a cappella across from me the rest of the original version of I Want It That Way. And I'm thinking, how many people have had a Backstreet Boy sit in front of them and start singing a cappella, an unreleased song that is one of the most iconic songs in music history? So that blew me away. We shot a TikTok, we took a picture, and before I could even get back to my workstation to edit the interview we had just recorded, he had already put on Instagram, thank you. I'm so glad I got to visit with On Air with Eryn today, and put me on his. AJ McLean put me on his Instagram story. I was like, that is so nice. Yeah.
Does it seem different to think that, you're having a conversation with a Backstreet Boy when he's not, I guess he's still a Backstreet Boy, but I mean,
he's a Backstreet man now.
Well, yeah, it's just so interesting to me. I think about it. I'm just like, wow, we're still talking to these folks about something they did in 1998.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, this is going deep. This is going.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Well, I would hate to be talked about something that I did back in high school.
But that's the beauty of it, because when you make something that is so impactful and is adored so deeply by people, that is something that you have to be so proud of, because how many people can say that they have accomplished that? And it is something they continue to accomplish, because, there's high schoolers that love that song now, but it's new to them. That's what happened with me and Hanson. I fell in love with Hanson 13 years after they had blown up. But it was new to me, and I'm, 10 to 20 years younger than the average Hanson fan, but they're my favorite band in the whole world. So I think the people that respect that and understand that and can build on that legacy are the ones that are going to be successful, because they can grasp, hey, I've done something that a handful of people in the entire world have done, and I'm continuing to raise new generations of, in this case, music fans with an album or a song, whatever it may be. And that is something that the Backstreet Boys have done so well, is they have never strayed from what they do best.
I think that was a great answer to that question, because I looked at it in a totally different, a darker way than you answered it. You answered it in such a bright, light way that makes total sense. And me, I went into this conversation in my mind thinking of such a darker way of saying it, but that's amazing. You're able to switch that up. That's why you're a professional at this.
Oh,
now, you said you had one more pinch me moment.
I'll do it very quickly. So, again, if we haven't sensed a trend, I love boy bands. Other than listening to Shania and Garth riding around in the car with my family when I was really little, my other wheelhouse was boy bands and pop music. I grew up on One Direction too. They were my middle school and high school world. I had the incredible opportunity when I was with Hot 106.7 as well to interview Louis Tomlinson of One Direction when he was releasing his second album. We did a private listening party with him and 12 fans, listeners that won a contest we were doing to come meet Louis and listen to some unreleased tracks from the album before it came out. And my life felt like it had been building up to this. My walls plastered with One Direction posters. My closet, my door, everything. Went to 2 of their shows. Total fangirl, right? And they've talked to everybody in the world. One Direction has been under a microscope, RIP, they're on a hiatus, but they had talked to everybody at this point, right? So I was like, how am I going to ask Louis something that is meaningful to him? Because he does, they all do so much press. His soccer team, he's from Doncaster in England, and his hometown team had just won a soccer match right before our interview started, and I updated him on the score. And I started our sit down. I was like, Louis, Doncaster pulled off the win today, 2-1. And his head jolts up and he didn't even know that they were playing. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you know that. Thank you for updating me. Asked him another question. He turns to me and says, you are the most well-researched interviewer I've ever had.
Wow, that is amazing.
And you can see in one of the clips, I actually physically turn away and go, okay. Like, I actually have to compose myself. So I'll never forget that, because that meant a lot, that he was engaged enough in the conversation to, hear what I had to say.
So you still get starstruck from time to time.
Yes, I will say, as fangirly as I am, at working with artists and working in news and with every kind of person you can imagine from all walks of life, world leaders, people who are unhoused, you name it.
All the way to Jelly Roll.
All the way to Jelly Roll, who's the story, I don't know if you want to hear it. His cousin gave me a tattoo the other day at Jelly Roll's #1 party. So.
Oh yeah, that was at Tin Roof, right?
That was at Tin Roof. The last place that you want to get a tattoo is Tin Roof Demumbrian in broad daylight.
That to me, that I actually would prefer to get a place at Tin Roof. The grimier the place, the better the place for the Tin Roof. But how was Jelly Roll and how was that experience? Because I think we think about today, and we won't carry this on too much longer. But I mean the Jelly Roll today, in terms of Nashville and Lainey Wilson, who are on a tear as of right now in March. We'll see this later in the summer. But what's it like to be in a city like Nashville where these great musicians are starting, and Morgan Wallen's another one of them, that claim to fame Nashville home, and slowly, because of Beyonce's song and a lot of other people, countries now becoming fashionable today. I mean, what's it like to live in the LA before LA?
Well, I can tell you that in terms of Jelly Roll, I forget, this is the highest compliment, and I mean it that way. I forget that Jelly Roll is famous because he's a musician a lot of the time. Because when you speak to him and you hear him speak to others on stage at his shows, he should just be famous for being an incredible person. He is so inspirational. He means every word that he says, and he has beat the odds, especially being from Nashville, being incarcerated, taking the path that he has taken, coming from, he's even said it himself, like he was barely scraping by financially and in all other ways, has a daughter, I forget that he's also this crazy talented artist because he's just so compelling and real. Same thing with Lainey Wilson. I mean, speaking to them and hearing their insight on, how they don't burn out. I asked them that question when I was at their #1 party a couple weeks ago, and their answer is just surrounding themselves with a wonderful support system and family and clinging to that. And that's how you don't burn out as the hustlers that we are in Nashville. And, that really resonated with me because I'm very lucky to have a strong support system. And
are you a free agent still? Not signed by any kind of agent or manager yet?
Nope. I'm just me. I'm just on air with Eryn.
Well, I doubt that that's going to be for long. I guarantee you that. I think you have way too much going on and too much behind the scenes to not have a team dedicated for yourself. I think that's something that could happen to you this year, and I'd be very excited to see it happen in the next couple of years, because I think you're on that plane. I think you're not on this show if I don't think you're somebody.
Oh my gosh.
That?
And that's you too, dude. Seriously, as someone that is always, I've said this so many times today, but I want to make sure this is on our podcast today. As someone that is usually the interviewer who is researching the person asking the questions, you are such a pro, and I am so proud to be talking to you, and you should be so proud of what you've built. I love this podcast, and you're awesome.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, my last 2 questions before we go to your day in the life, because that's what makes us a YouTube show versus a podcast.
Yeah.
The haters. People come at you in so many different ways, whether it's social media, whether it is callers on the radio, whether it is just people out and about that just did not believe in your vision. How did you not let that affect you? How did that not let you get to you are today? What can you inspire to someone that's watching this today who's going through the same thing, that does not know their path to get onto radio or entertainment? Maybe they're stuck in a dead-end job. How can you inspire them, and how do you not let others deflate you?
Wow. I was right at the end of the day. So for anyone that, and I had somebody come up to me at a party one time after they had a few from my hometown that was like, yeah, we used to bully you in middle school. Haha. But then she was all friendly with me then. And I was like, yeah. So being too enthusiastic, too passionate, too excited, too much. No, I'm just the right amount, because I've made my passions and what I love, and I've made talking to people and being myself my job, and I get paid to do so. And I think that is something a lot of people would like to achieve. And I have done it by being myself. And, you know, if that's any testament for people to be themselves and not listen to anybody who's making fun of them, come on.
I love that. Okay, now my last question before we go on to your day in the life here. By the time this is out, hopefully this is during the summertime.
Yes.
I would love the sun to be out. It's hot and sticky here in Nashville.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to the rest of 2024? Is there particular events you're looking forward to, either hosting or being a part of? What are you looking forward to the rest of this year?
Oh my gosh. Well, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, CMA Fest, being involved with the Opry. And again, I've only been at the Opry for a few months right now, but seeing what those plans are going to be, I think just growing into that role. I mean, I think the working at the Opry has been my greatest challenge within this side of the industry that I have faced in the best way possible. I am using literally every tool I've added to my tool belt, and I think I have a lot of tools already, and it is extremely strenuous. So I'm looking at just growing in my own confidence there and continuing to be happy and you know, balance things a little bit more. I work a lot, and I would love to get to a point where I'm not worrying so much about, should I be working on this thing? Should I be working on that thing? So it may not be something super flashy and glamorous of, you know, things kind of pop up all the time that I host, but personally, I'm just really excited to continue to grow in my new role. So I don't know if that's the answer you were expecting, but
that's good. I like it. Okay, so the way that we tee off your day in the life, the way that we tee it off is you look straight into that camera right there. You say your name and you say, "This is how I walk the line." Okay, so right after the applause.
Okay.
In 3.
Hi, I'm Eryn Cooper, and this is how I walk the line.
Hey, Eryn.
Indeed it does. We are exactly 5 months away from Christmas. It is July 25th, but I did not expect to have as many Christmas updates for you on the show today, including Christmas is coming early for Opry star Vince Gill and Amy Grant fans. All right, we have details on what they have in store for you. Also, the Opry Country Christmas lineup has been announced. I'll tell you who's going to be performing and how you can get your tickets. Also, Reba McEntire, she has a music video coming out on Friday, what you can expect for that, and of course, I have your Opry lineups through the weekend. We got Opry stars Lady A on the way, but first, it's Jordan Davis. WSM Nashville. And now we do nothing for 2 songs. This is so fun. Every day. Okay, so gonna give you a tour of our brand new studio. This is only my second full week in here. That's how new we've moved in. So we're still dusting off some things. This is our board. This is how I control the music. I'm gonna crank the music up real loud for a sec. So my knob is right here. My mics and where the music comes out of is these knobs. If I need to play something off of this computer, I have a little pot and level for that. So here's the front of our little desks because we are a TV studio as well. We have our morning show logo on here, Coffee, Country, and Cody. That's where I started when I first came to WSM. I was a producer for that show. This is where Bill Cody, the legend himself, who's been here at the Opry and on our radio station for 30 years, he sits here. Kelly Sutton, our awesome entertainment reporter, she sits here. And then here is where our live guests will sit when they come in for an interview. So artists, people from the Nashville community. And what's really cool about when they sit here is this stage was custom made out of Opry Ryman wood. So all of the performers that performed on the Opry stage when it was still at the Ryman many decades ago, they all stood on this wood. And then this is mainly for our morning show, or if we were doing anything with program. This is our rundown, so you can see Parnalee's playing right now, and then a little rotator with me is gonna play. And then we have a teleprompter if we need. So, and then we have our TV cameras. So 1, 2, 3, 4, We have at least 5 cameras in here, and I think we're gonna get at least 3 to 4 more. So we're gonna have every angle. Yeah, it's so beautiful. It still has the new car smell, and shooting content in here is very fun. It's even more fun when I'm doing crazy dances and tourists see that, but it's soundproof glass, so they can't tell what I'm doing and I just look crazy. Again, when I think of Christmas, their new Christmas album is going to be out on September 13th, but if you're feeling really in the Christmas spirit while it's 85 degrees outside, you can pre-order it now if you want.
This is On Air with Eryn, WSM Radio.
All right, my show is every day, 3 to 7. It's 7 now, so it's over. I hope you enjoyed a little snippet of it and the tour of our brand new studio here at WSM. But now we're gonna take you on a little tour of Backstage at the Opry House before we interview Eryn Wilson. Let's go. All right, we just got off the radio from being live, and now we are at the artist entrance at the Grand Ole Opry. So every time an artist comes, they'll always stop and take their picture under this little canopy. We're gonna go inside, we got our makeup, we got our extra hair, and we're gonna get ready to host a post-Opry artist Q&A and acoustic performance with Eryn Wilson. She's performing tonight. She just released her second album called Rebel, and the Opry has an offer where guests who come to the show, they can go buy her album, and if they're the first couple hundred people to do so, they can come to this private Q&A session. So we're gonna MC that, and we're gonna go hang around backstage beforehand. Let's go. This is the final look, what we came up with. Let's go run around backstage and look at some stuff. This is a mural that was rescued from a former Opry house from a flood. And over here, it's a little darker, and that's how high the water came up. So they salvaged it, but you can see the water line. Rebel. So good. Thank you for everybody who picked it up. That's why you get to be here. How awesome. So what is about to happen is we are going to do a Q&A with Eryn. So be thinking about questions that you would want to ask her, because I'll have you raise your hand. We'll call you. She'll answer a few questions. I'll warm you up. I'll ask her a few first, because how effortlessly you radiate confidence. And it's not even just in who you are, it's in what you're pursuing with your new record, Rebel. Something that you've said that stuck out.
Pressure on how I was gonna follow up that song and how I was gonna, pour my heart into that album, which was amazing. I wrote 150 songs for it and wrote from 17 to 19, or almost 20 years old actually. But Rebel was an album that for me felt like I was just more mature and more grounded in what I wanted to say as an artist.
Fit in more, but realizing that you can only be who God made you to be, and you can't change yourself for that. So,
in the grand, oh yes, please, round of applause. Absolutely. I'm gonna clap after everything you say. It's just flawless.
This one, okay? This is my Jesus.
Are you past the point of weary? Is your burden weighing heavy? Is it all too much to carry? Well, let me tell you about my Jesus. Do you feel that empty feeling? Your shame's done all it's stealing, and you're desperate for some healing. Well, let me tell you about my Jesus. He makes a way where there ain't no way, rises up.